This is 800 hours GMT on Saturday, the 8th of August 2020. We are taking a world exclusive diagnostic look at Fleet Street, also known as the British newspapers, actually the English language newspapers based in London, London centric. They don't include papers from Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland. But this is the Sun. And so we shall take the look. Now, this is evidence again of the agenda that the Murdoch papers is promoting in denying the persistence of the coronavirus pandemic still ravaging many parts of Britain and the rest of the world. So this is the Sun. Because of its dishonesty, we call it scum. Many other people call it scum as well. And the Murdoch-owned Times newspaper politically is aiding and abetting the racist anti-migrant narrative. The main headline is continuing the agenda promoted by racist, nasty Nigel Farage, colluding with Priti Patel, the British Home Secretary now, who has declared war on the most desperate people seeking asylum or refuge or home away from areas of war, famine, and massacres created by the war's agenda of the West, including Britain, and powered by the military industrial complex, the war-making machines of the so-called economies. So this is the time saying push back on migrants. So we shall be looking at length at that again. And the Daily Mail is changing tack today in terms of the desperation that it featured Priti Patel yesterday, Friday. So this is Saturday's Daily Mail, which says that its own campaign to equip the frontline care workers with PPE kit has numbered 30 million. That is what it is boasting of. But its actual agenda is in support of the deniers of the vital protection and care and attention to the people who need care and support and who deliver care and support. So we shall take a further detailed look at that. And again, the Star, which is the paper published from the Daily Mirror's table, and it used to be owned by Dirty Desmond until he gave up ownership and resumed the career as openly, flagrantly dirty, corrupting Desmond. So they're talking about, again, I'm a celebrity. They're not talking about the virus or the threat to health and safety. So the Daily Mirror, continuing its claimed exclusive report based on MP or MPs asking Boris Johnson to show the proof of Cummings' breach of the lockdown, the second breach of the pandemic lockdown trip, number 2. And this is about the witnesses who saw Cummings walking in a park or a public space. And Cummings and his stooges have so far denied that he did that he did the second breach of the lockdown. So we shall take a further diagnostic look at how this is continuing to feature now. And this is a kind of people's princess that Alistair Campbell called her in 1997, in August 1997. This is August 1997, an anniversary month of the month when the People's Princess was named People's Princess, and after she was killed or murdered, depending on whose actual interpretation of what happened is accepted. And Muhammad al-Fayed continues to believe that she was murdered. And that is the Daily Express, which is an odd title to have any positive featuring of Diana because of her public positive relationship and attitude to relationship with and attitude to many Muslim persons during her lifetime, including, of course, Muhammad Fayed and his son who was killed with her, Dodi Fayed, and Dr. Hasnat, who was the medical doctor with whom she had the widely regarded personal last romantic relationship with, the Pakistani doctor Hasnat. And so the Daily Express is celebrating house prices soaring to record high. Now, how stupid and how illogical and how ignorant and idiotic can that be? Because house prices soaring to record high means there will be more homeless people, more evictions, and more overcrowding and more on the waiting list. No responsible editor, newspaper group or editorial would publish that kind of report, but that is how the corrupt, capitalist, profiteering, crooked entrepreneurs and their actual masters and agenda pushers think. That is how they think. They think there is no society, there is no obligation, and there is no sign that in a million years this paper and this kind of headline resembles anything like the compliance with the treaty obligations that have been going on about, that Britain remains signatory to, signed up to on paper. And the responsibility for this kind of brazen violations of treaty obligations lies actually at the door of the so-called opposition fronted by Keir Starmer. Now the Express, which I have named the Daily Suppress because it tells lies and replaces lies in place of truth, and it hides the truth. Now this is a contemptible denial of the housing rights, universal housing rights, at a time of the pandemic, which is being celebrated by these criminals, promoting degenerate, profiteering, affordability tag. Affordability means those who have the money will get the housing. And that presumes clearly the lack of any rights on the part of those who are homeless or who are in insecure housing or who are facing a whole avalanche of eviction proceedings against them in 10 days' time. And so therefore, we have to look at the role of these papers in promoting this violation of human rights, legal rights, constitutional rights, basic housing rights, and ask the question, what is the official democratic so-called parliamentary opposition for? And this is the next pages about the city or the town of Preston in lockdown. That shows that the Express is wrong to overhype the house prices rise, record rise. It should be ashamed and disgrace. But the National Union of Journalists, which claims to be or used to claim to have a conscientious agenda, has never played any part in the British media's distortion. British media meaning Fleet Street, meaning the tabloid, meaning the popular right-wing newspapers based in London, that the BBC and the Sky and ITV and Channel 4 promote or refer to or defer to or rely on. These papers have never recognized the rights of the people in a democracy, regardless of income, and based simply on the needs, just like the founding principle underlying the National Health Service was that treatment and care, health care at the point of need, not based on the ability to pay. And that principle of the welfare state has been crashed and tempered with and trampled on by successive regimes, fronted by Margaret Thatcher, but also fronted by Labour parties, James Callaghan, and then the Labour Party led by Neil Kinnock, and then, of course, by Tony Blair. Underneath the slogans and promotion and spin that Blair spread about his significant stable government, he in fact was implementing most of the Margaret Thatcher agenda and narratives. As we have been saying, he was the one that let John Prescott push the stock transfer of housing from Tower Hamlets Council to Poplar Haque and Tower Hamlets Community Housing. So there is not only no opposition by the Labour Party to the Conservative agenda now, there has not been ever, not for the last 50 years really. And whatever opposition, the opposition leaders like Miliband and Corbyn and Kinnock, and of course to some extent Michael Foot, whatever opposition they mouthed, they did not amount to any opposition in terms of halting the march of the bulldozers against society, against the idea of universal security in a society. So the papers today, and the Guardian is of course going rightwards continuously every day, the papers are not talking about, none of the papers that I have picked up, except the Telegraph and the Financial Times, which I didn't have the space to carry in the bag. The papers are not talking about they're not talking about the treaty obligations. And why are the treaty obligations important? We shall be discussing in the next part of this diagnosis.